Hello and welcome to the Wewealth Women podcast. My name is Athena, the CEO and founder of Wewealth Women, where we help women live their best goddess life and confidently manage everything from their finances and help them in their journey to womanhood. So, in today's episode, we are going to discuss something that is near and dear to my heart. This is something that I actually struggle with, and that is really being a perfectionist. Being a perfectionist. So, I really wanted us to talk about this today because I know that is something that us as women we struggle with dearly. A lot of us have, we're over we're always trying to be perfect, where we have this perfectionism thing going on. And really, I wanted to get to the core of why that is, why perfection is not the way. This is something that I also struggle with as a highly ambitious woman, always thinking that I need to be perfect or I need to make sure that I deliver. I'm very critical. I see things through a lens of critique a lot and how someone could criticize something, right? Which the benefits are means that the work product or what I do tends to be of better quality, but the downside of that is the journey. The journey of getting to that point can be quite taxing. And that was something that I was facing earlier this week, was just feeling like it wasn't good enough, or just even the past few weeks, just feeling like what I was delivering was not good enough, no matter what I did. And each time coming to the conclusion or getting the feedback that, oh my God, this was so great. Oh my God, you over delivered. Oh my God, the validation of, okay, I did do a great job. But in the process of getting to that point of delivery, just feeling like not great in that process, feeling, very hard on myself, beating myself up. And as women, we do that a lot, right? So that inspired me to make this episode, right? To really get at the core of why perfection is not the way. So, what I really want to do really quickly is to explain what perfectionism is and explain, how that manifests in our lives and how you can identify if this is something that you have or if you're struggling with, and then what we can do about it, right? What we can do about that situation. So I want to actually pivot to this clip that I saw from Viola Davis talking about this, and I felt like it was so profound, and I felt like she was speaking to me, and I hope that, especially for women who struggle with this, I hope you find value in this, and I hope you find that, she's also speaking to you with this, right?
Sometimes I don't feel pretty. Shit, sometimes I don't want to slay dragons. Sometimes the dragon I'm slaying is myself. But damn it, I'm worth it. I don't have to barter for my worth. I don't have to pay someone for it. I came out of my mom's womb worthy.
And I'm gonna run that clip again, just so you guys listen to what she has to say. Listen.
I'm perfect.
Damn, I'm not perfect.
Sometimes I don't feel pretty. Shit, sometimes I don't want to slay dragons. Sometimes the dragon I'm slaying is myself. But damn it, I'm worth it. I don't have to barter for my worth. I don't have to pay someone for it. I came out of my mom's womb worthy.
We came on my mom's womb. I love Queen Viola, right? I just love her so much because, even learning about her journey, about the levels of poverty she like rose out of, and to create this acting career where she still to this day does not get her just due, where she's still, people call her the Black Meryl Streep, but she's not making Meryl Streep money, right? And to the point where she had to start her own production company. But in that clip that she shared with us, she conveyed the thought process, the thinking, the feelings that we have sometimes when you suffer under being trying to be a perfectionist, is that you feel you know, when you feel like you're not measuring. And oftentimes, and I'm even using myself as an example, my like my average is above most people's effort, right? And because I've just been groomed this way in childhood to operate like this, like my baseline is above the average person. And what do I mean by that? Am I trying to be arrogant? Am I trying to be elitist? No. What I mean by that is because I'm so used to always having to perform, and somewhere I learned that I needed to perform at a high level constantly, that even when I'm chilling, it's still good, but I don't feel that way, right? And it's almost like if I don't feel like I'm like exerting like all this effort, then I'm like, okay, I'm not doing enough. And you feel like you're never enough. So I wanted to pivot to this article that I found from Psychology Today that I feel like perfectly explains what I'm talking about, ladies. So, Psychology Today refers to perfectionism as a trait that makes life an endless report card on your accomplishments or looks. When healthy, it can be self motivating and drive you to overcome adversity and achieve success. When unhealthy, it can be a fast and enduring track to unhappiness, right? What makes extreme perfectionism so toxic is that while those in its grip desire success, they are most focused on avoiding failure, resulting in a negative orientation. They don't believe in unconditional love, expecting others' affection and approval to be dependent on a flawless performance. All right, listen, that was a word. That was a word. The perfectionism is really high levels of unworthiness and high levels of feeling like you're not good enough and high levels of feeling like trying to avoid failure and the criticism that comes from failure, because somewhere down the line, and for most of us this is going to be childhood as it is for me, you learned that failure was not an option for you. You learned that, you know, you didn't have room to be imperfect. You didn't have room to make mistakes, or the feedback that you received as a child when you made a mistake was so traumatizing to you that you kind of created this what I would call like a mental affinity to avoid failure and critique at all costs. And that is a high price of perfectionism. So what causes perfectionism, right? Right? What causes it? Perfectionism is driven primarily by internal pressures such as the desire to avoid failure or harsh judgments. There is likely a social component as well because perfectionistic tendencies have increased substantially among young people over the past 30 years, regardless of gender or culture. Greater academic and professional competition is thought to play a role, along with pervasive presence of social media and harmful social comparisons. All right. So I want to go into what are the three signs? What are the signs that someone is a perfectionist, right? Because I think that that is very important. What are the signs? So according to this article by Psychology Today, perfectionists set unrealistically high expectations for themselves and others. They are quick to find fault and overly critical of mistakes. They tend to procrastinate a project out of their fear of failure. They shrug off compliments and forget to celebrate their success. Instead, they look to specific people in their life for approval and validation. Listen, this is me. This is me and this is some of you. So, setting high expectations, yes, but I don't think they're unrealistically high. But if I'm looking at the baseline of everyone else, they probably are, right? Um, quick to find fault and overly critical of mistakes. That's usually with myself. So I'm not that judgmental of others, but I judge myself more harshly. And I know a lot of you guys do too, right? They shrug off compliments and forget to celebrate their success. I forget to celebrate my success all the time, or when I accomplish everything. It is like, okay, I cross this off the list and I move on to the next, right? And I even remember like a moment in childhood. I remember going to one of my parents and saying, like, oh, here's, this award or my report card or whatever. And I'm not going to say which parent it was, but um, the response was, so what do you want? You want me to say like a good job? This is what you're expected to do, things like that. So I've learned to just, this is what I'm expected to do. What do I need? Do I need a trophy for this? Right? Do I need a trophy for this? So, for a lot of us, that is the root of the issue is that we have learned that to engage with life in such a way to avoid failure, to avoid mistakes, because we're really trying to avoid the harsh criticism, the judgments, or especially from specific people. Now, that piece in the article stood out to me as well because, to be honest with you, I don't care about the opinions on the everyday, day to day person, like a stranger on the street, whatever the case. Most of my, for the longest time, validation or opinions I cared about was from my parents in particular. My parents in particular opinions. And that's how I know that's the source too, because in the article it said they look to specific people in their life for approval and validation. So for the longest time, I just feel like I'm a 30 plus year old woman, like 33 to be exact. I feel like I've just gotten to the point where I just really don't need my parents' validation on things. And it's not like, it's funny too because it's not like I even live with them. I've left the house at 18, went to college, and never came back. So this is so the fact that it has such a grip, and this is why parenting is so important, because it does have like lifelong effects on how your children see and maneuver throughout the world. So, you know, that is it. But we need to explore, even though this is something that a lot of us face as women, right? We need to explore the dangers of perfectionism, right? We need to explore how this can really hold you back in life, in work, in business, in relationship, for your mental health as a woman, right? So perfection, of course, is an abstract, right? It's an impossibility in reality. So we are trying to be something that is a losing game, ladies. We are trying to be perfect. And there's no such thing, but in our crazy mind, we try to rationalize that this is something that we can achieve, right? And every time, listen, every time I go to the grocery store, the grocery store for me, every time, I don't know if it's because I operate from home, right? Every time I go to the grocery store and I'm just looking at what I call Gen Pop, which is like the general population, I'm always reminded, Athena, you can relax, right? You can relax. And I know it may come off arrogant or elitist in the way I'm talking about this right now, but what I mean is that I can relax. Like, what am I overextending myself for? For the general population, it's not giving what it's supposed to give. Sorry, if the average person to me is not giving what it's supposed to give. If you go into a grocery store and you just look around at everybody, how they're showing up, I'm not even talking about looks, I'm not even talking about that. Just disposition, just even standing up straight, even looking straight, even, halfway decent. People are struggling just to do that, right? So it always kind of recalibrates me a little bit when I step out and I go to the grocery store. The grocery store in particular, for some reason, I think because the grocery store is kind of like a watering hole. Like everyone kind of has to go to some form of grocery store to get food. So you're gonna see like the range of people, and it always like calms me down. It's like, okay, just relax. Like you're doing too much, right? So yes, back to the dangers of perfectionism. So perfection is abstract. When taken too far, striving for perfection can lead to negative outcomes, right? Negative outcomes such as procrastination, tendency to avoid challenges, rigid all or nothing thinking, which is very dangerous, ladies. Always be flexible in thought. Toxic comparisons and lack of creativity. Maladaptive perfectionism is often driven by fear of failure, feelings of unworthiness, low self esteem, and adverse childhood experiences. It is frequently accompanied by depression, anxiety, OCD, eating disorders, and even suicidal impulses. So that was a lot that I just said. But what stood out for me in that is feelings of unworthiness. So this is such an interesting thought process or feelings that can live at the same time. So most people, when they meet me, and even myself, right, I would generally describe myself as a very, very, very confident person, like confident than the average person for sure, confident than most people walking on earth for sure, right? But what also lives within this perfectionist reality is not feeling good enough with what I produce, right? At times, sometimes I do stuff. I'm like, damn, I'm the shit. Like I really did that. Like I'm really doing, I'm doing the thing right now. I'm doing the Lord's work right now, right? But usually I'll get those moments after I done killed myself to go above and beyond to produce the thing. Then the thing comes out amazingly well, and then I'm like, oh, I'm the shit. But why do I have to kill myself in order to like get that outcome? Why can't I just feel like, oh, I'm the shit during the whole journey, if that makes sense, right? And I feel like with us as women, the whole perfectionist thing, even though it's an ideal that we can't achieve because there's no such thing, but also it negatively impacts our work, our businesses, our relationships, right? Because oftentimes procrastination is one of the things that accompanies that because we're afraid to make a mistake. So we're taking a long time just to get the energy to finally do something, right? It negatively impacts our mental health because if you don't feel worthy as you're doing the work, or not even just work, like if you don't feel like you can just be, if you can't feel like you can just relax, if you can't feel like all is well while you're going about your work, your business, your relationship, that is taxing on your mental health. That is, you are mentally taxing yourself to keep up a self concept that is not even achievable. So you're constantly taxing yourself trying to be something you cannot be. And what I have been realizing in the midst of, because a lot of this has been coming up for me because I've had so much things that I've had to do, so many projects that I'm working on, which I'm grateful. And ladies, I know everyone has their life to live, so this may resonate with you, but I have so many things that I'm trying to accomplish as an ambitious woman. This podcast is one. I sit on a panel weekly with a bunch of other women. There's my business, the work that I'm doing. There's so many things that are performance and outcome based as well, right? That it requires for me to bring my presence, bring myself to, bring my energy and my being and my spirit. And certain days are better than others. And the feeling that I can't even have an off day, or when I do have an off day, not giving myself grace because I'm supposed to always deliver, right? This pressure, this self imposed, not just self imposed, because these things that I'm doing have come with its own pressures too now. Come with its own deliverables, come with its own expectations of different parties involved, right? Especially the things where it's not just me, but also the self-imposed pressure from the perfectionist ideal that I can never reach adds to that. So I'm gonna be honest with you, ladies. There's days where I just lose it. I just lose it, and I'm like, I'm not doing anything today. I'm just gonna be in my bed, watch trash TV, eat trash Chinese food probably, and just let it be. And on those days, I feel better. I take these mental health days and I just relax. But I want us to get to a point where we don't have to crash out, right? And it is a cycle that I've noticed every once in a while. Like I just get to, I was like, oh, this is too much. I can't do this, right? And I finally identified the pattern. The pattern is, and pay attention, this might be you too. The pattern is I have a million things on the list. And I grind and I cross all the things on the list. Then I finally have a lot of the things off the list. Then I can finally breathe, right? I'm like, whew, all right, whatever. Then I throw a million things back on the list. Then I stress myself to try to cross off everything off the list again. Then I have some kind of day or breakdown. I'm like, oh, I can't do this. I can't do all of this. Then I relax and I breathe. Then I cross off. I was like, okay, I'm gonna cross this thing off and let's not pick up anything new. And then the cycle starts over again. So this time around, since I have identified the problem, which is me, I was like, you know what? Longevity. Instead of trying to be perfect, I'm going to do the best in the moments that I can. If it's something I'm doing, continuously refine that process and pace myself in a way so I'm not having these crash out moments because I'm trying to sprint when I really need to run a marathon, right? I'm trying to sprint to the thing, and the universe is saying, no, girl, you need to pace this thing. This is a marathon, right? And which makes sense because, when I was in Jamaica, right, or even here, when I came to the US, I was in track and I was always a sprinter. I never did marathon runs. I hated marathon runs. I didn't like marathon runs. The longest race I ever did was a 400 meter. So life is saying, just take a chill pill. And I think that's what we're going to need to do, ladies, or else we run the risk. We run the risk of, crashing out. We run the risk of not being able to sustain. And I think mental health is so important. And this clearly has adverse effects for us as well. Now, I want to focus on tips, right? I want to focus on tips. If you are a woman who's a perfectionist, if you are a woman if any of this resonates for you, if this is something that you're struggling with, I want to give you tips, the tips that I'm taking too, to make this something that is easier for you to manage. I do think this is going to be I don't think there's a cure for this, unfortunately. Maybe there is. I just don't know about it, but I think this is something that we're going to have to manage throughout the rest of our lives. So if that is the case, then what can we do about it, right? What can we do to manage our perfectionist, right, issues? So one thing to suggest is letting go of the comparison mindset can help people achieve at a high level without being beholden to some impossibly perfect ideal. They can do this by embracing mindfulness and being present in the moment, using compassionate self talk and challenging negative self judgments. The key is to realize that an endeavor can be worthwhile even if it's not perfect, right? So that is great, right? So working on our inner critic, working on a negative self talk, working on, taking time for mindfulness, taking time to breathe. What I've been doing lately that has been helpful is carving out time to read and not read anything that is on a device that has a backlight, that is any technology related, like an old fashioned book on something that is non-work related. Right now I'm reading a book called Calling in the One. It's been so helpful. It's about really working on your emotions, as it relates to just a lot of inner work on your emotions and around love too. So that has been very helpful for me. Just having a practice of, I at least take 30 minutes out of the day to read this and just unplug from what seems to be this ever shifting society, technological society that we're in. What also has been useful for me, and hopefully will be useful for you as well, is I remind myself of my humanity. I remind myself of the average person in that grocery store I was talking to you about, because I need to remind myself of my humanity. Because what also comes with that perfectionist thing often is because you look like you have it so together, no one comes to your aid. No one thinks to check in on you. No one thinks that you're going through anything, which leaves you highly vulnerable, which leaves you sometimes feeling unsupported, which leaves you feeling uncared for. And so, what I've been doing is not only reminding myself of my own humanity, but also reaching out for those to those people who are my support system, and also reminding myself it's okay to not show an image of perfection of all the time, but also remind myself that it's okay to be vulnerable with people, and there's beauty in the vulnerability. There's beauty in the humanity, right? Because what I don't want is for people to think I'm on such high of a pedestal that I never need help, that I never need support, that I never need love, that I never need, care and concern, which can often happen if people have a self concept of you of being perfect and not needing anything. Fortunately, unfortunately, however you want to look at it, people need to see you in different vulnerable spaces and situations in order to remind themselves that you need these things, right? What has also been very helpful for me is to remind myself, in the midst of all me trying to kill myself being perfect, is that nobody's showing up perfect for me. I have yet to see someone show up perfect for me. And so it reminds myself that I can relax because no one is showing up perfect for me. Not anyone I work with, not a family member, not a soul walking on this earth has been showing up perfect for me. So it reminds me to give myself grace. To give myself grace that I too cannot show up perfect. And within that, within giving my own self grace, within understanding that I'm worthy of my own grace, I'm worthy of my own humanity, and I understand as a human being I'm not perfect. I extend that grace to others. I'm less judgmental of others. I'm less critical others. I'm more compassionate and have more grace for others within that, because I understand that they are human just like me, right? They are human just like me. Now, ladies, I know I said a word today. And if you liked the words that I said, please like and subscribe to the channel, to the podcast, wherever you're listening or watching this. Be sure to follow us on social as well, on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok at Wewealth Woman. If you feel like you want to work with me at any point in time, you can do so. You can head on over to wewealthwoman.com and enter your wealthy goddess era. Okay. You can sign up for our newsletter called the Wealth Notes, and that is at go.wewealthwoman.com. Right? Go.wewealthwoman.com is where our newsletter resides. So you can feel free to go over there. Also, you can, while it's still available, girls, because, your girl is busy. On the website, I have courses, I have coaching, merch, newsletter, podcast, all that you need to enter your wealthy goddess era. This episode has been great. I felt like it was even a therapy session for me, honey. So I hope it was a therapy session for you. If any of you identify with being a perfectionist or going through that perfectionism syndrome, you're not alone. It's going to be something that we can manage. Obviously, the beauty of it is that you're going to really put out some great work, put out some, put your best foot forward. But, in the midst of all that, remember your humanity, and remember to prioritize your mental health. And just remember that you are worthy. You are worthy as is. And to also remember that no one is showing up to you perfect as well. But all right, ladies, I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next episode.